Holy this movie is a piece of brilliance. Hey guys, how's it going, and welcome back to another Harry Potter review, and today we're reviewing the brilliant Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Now before we get started, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Now I would say through its 8-film run, the Harry Potter series, again, as the actors grow up and as the characters mature, we start dealing with more mature topics, and the films start to get much darker and much grittier. And Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is the first big jump in tone and filmmaking that we saw in this franchise. The first two were directed by Chris Columbus, and he brought this family-friendly vibe to the Harry Potter franchise. But now this movie is directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who I had no idea had his stamp on the Harry Potter franchise, because nowadays he's a very highly talked about director. Like 2 years ago, he won an Oscar for that Netflix movie Roma. I think if you're a fan of film and the Harry Potter franchise, you would love this movie, because I know when I was a kid and I first saw this movie for the very first time at a really young age, I did not appreciate this movie as much as I should have, because watching this film throughout the years and actually getting to sit down the other day with some of my friends. If you didn't know, I'm having a binge with some friends right now when we're watching the Harry Potter series. Just sitting down with them and actually watching this film, I realized, holy crap, did I not appreciate this movie as much as I should have. It looks like it's shot by a very high caliber director like Alfonso Cuarón. It looks beautiful, the cinematography looks gorgeous. But what I noticed in this movie is that majority of the days are always gloomy and sad. It's either raining or it looked like it just rained. The skies are always gray. It snowed. I think the only bright sunny day that we ever saw was that day where Harry got to fly Buckbeak for the first time. But even that day kind of looked like it just stopped raining, or it's about to start raining, right? So just visually, this movie already looks gritty and more mature than the other two films, and it has a real style of the way it looks. For example, also, the constant fades in and fades out are a thing that this movie does to move from scene to scene. And I love the fades in and fades out, is that like it kind of just closes in on a person's face and just complete darkness surrounds the screen, and it closes into like this little circle onto the object to end the scene, and it's like it's being consumed by complete darkness, which is like a theme in this movie. Some of the camera movements, I first noticed a really cool camera movement that they did. It was really simple, but it was that when Harry was talking to Ron's dad about Sirius Black, there was that shot of Harry and Ron's dad. They're talking about Sirius in the distance, but Sirius's picture, the wanted picture, is on a wall which is in the foreground, and we as the audience are looking at it, and they're behind the wall talking about him, but he's in the front. I noticed that was really cool. And that sequence, there was like a steady cam kind of following them. They were moving. They were like in this really weird kind of space. They were moving in between pillars, talking, and it was all one shot for like a minute or two, and it was just kind of following them. And I noticed, wow, that is way different from the first two. This director knows the kind of shots that he's looking for, and his camera movements are intentional, and he's trying to make a stylistic movie. No disrespect on Chris Columbus. I talked about how much, how great Chris Columbus did with the first two movies, about how much he had to set up. But, comparing him to Alfonso Cuarón's filmmaking, Chris Columbus has like nothing on it. They're about to do the ridiculous spell, and the closet that the thing comes out of has a mirror on it, and the shot, at first it looks like we're looking at the students lined up through the mirror, but then the camera starts moving into the mirror and it comes out of the mirror into the students. It's like a cool little optical illusion. That's the kind of stuff that shows you that, holy crap, this is a high caliber filmmaker making this movie. In this movie we get our first introduction to the Dementors. The Dementors look absolutely sick. The Patronus spell is actually one of my favorite spells in this whole franchise, and I love the utilization of it in this movie. I love how Harry has to practice it, and there's actually we actually see, because in the first two movies, you know, they're kind of just waving wands and saying things. But I like the introduction of Professor Lupin in this movie because he has a real connection with Harry. I mean, they obviously have some background history, you know, him being Harry's dad's friend and all of that. He really cares for Harry, and him and Harry exchanging these kind of deep philosophical conversations about Harry's past. I love when Lupin trains Harry to kind of make his Patronus better, and at the end we actually see, because we've seen him throughout the whole movie training on this Patronus spell, we see at the end him use it, and it actually feels satisfying because we've seen him go through the struggle of first trying to use it. Like, he actually trained for it. Also, can we talk about how this movie has like two different parts to it? First of all, it's the Sirius Black, and we're trying to find out who Sirius is, and Harry wants to kill Sirius, and then he finds out he's his godfather. By the way, Sirius is played by Gary Oldman. I love Gary Oldman. I think he's a great actor. Great choice for Sirius. But anyways, so we settle all of that, and then Harry wakes up in the hospital, and then Hermione's like, hey, we gotta go on this time travel mission. What? We're doing time travel now? I thought that was so cool, because the time travel part is kind of sprinkled in there a little bit. Like, Hermione keeps appearing in classes, and Ron is always pointing out, like, when did she get there? Or like, when did she get there? And it's in the back of your head, right? Like, she dismisses that like it's nothing, so you're like, it's Ron, it's whatever. It's not the most important thing right now that's happening. Right now, what's important is the serious stuff. Did not mean to make that pun. Did not mean to make that pun. And then somebody hits Harry with a rock in the back of the head, and somebody breaks a plant in Hagrid's home. And you dismiss that as nothing for now. But then you notice that it's a whole time travel thing, and Hermione hit Harry in the head, and Hermione explains about how she's been using time travel to go to more classes. You're like, what? This movie is so complex. It has so many moving parts to it. And again, the writing and the directing is so brilliant, and it really had to be that in order to disguise that second part. Because if you're watching this movie for the first time, you have no idea that the time travel stuff is about to kick into effect. Unless you read the books, obviously. But let's say you haven't read the books, right? Let's say you watched the first two Harry Potter movies, you loved them, and you're like, let's get the third one on. And you put it on, and you're like, ooh, Sirius Black, who is that? Harry's godfather, what? And then boom, all of a sudden, now we're in a time travel mission. Like, more than halfway into the movie, we're not doing time travel. And what I love about the time travel sequence, what I didn't notice before that I notice now, is as soon as it starts, there's a ticking clock in the background. There's a noise of a ticking clock in the background. Always. Always a ticking clock. And Lupin being a werewolf, I mean, how cool was that? It was a story thread that was, again, introduced to us in pieces, like, throughout the movie, and we were just too blind to see that sometimes. At least, I remember I was. But now that I think about it more, you know, when he steps in front of Harry and the fear thing turns into a full moon because that's his fear, because he's now in front of Harry and it's showing his fear. If you didn't read the books again, you would probably dismiss that as nothing. You're like, why is it the moon? I don't know, right? But then later in the movie you find out that he's a werewolf and the moon is his greatest fear. How cool was that? Again, this movie, unlike any other Harry Potter movies, future from now or the past from now, this movie pays attention to the details. It sets up story threads way ahead of time. Like, you really have to pay attention to this movie. And the reveal of Sirius Black being Harry's godfather was just so nice, because in that moment in time, I mean, all Harry wanted was like a nice family, right? He was so tired of the Dudleys. The Dudleys sucked. He just wanted somebody to have, you know, some kind of family connection to him. And Sirius Black, his godfather, and it was so nice because Harry was so excited in that moment. He was like, oh, I can come live with you. And he tells Hermione, Sirius asked me to live with him. I'm gonna take that chance. He's so excited. And at the end of the movie, he ends on a really happy note. He flies off. There's a freeze frame of him flying off, and he looks happy as ever. He's on that new broom that Sirius gave him. He found out that he has a relative that he can rely on, it's all good for Harry. This was also the first movie where I noticed a big improvement in acting from our three leads, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, and Daniel Radcliffe. They were all fantastic in the film. The guy who plays Lupin was great. Gary Oldman was great. Michael Gambon, who replaced Richard Harris in this film as Dumbledore because Richard Harris sadly passed away, was wonderful because Richard Harris's Dumbledore was like this really old wise man, right? In the first two movies, he spoke very slowly, very gently. He passed on his wisdom to Harry. But honestly, knowing where the franchise goes in the future, and maybe it's because I've seen Michael Gambon do this in the future, but I would prefer Michael Gambon. I mean no disrespect to Richard Harris, may he rest in peace, but yeah, just thinking about the future of where Dumbledore's character goes and the intensity that he has to bring to the role. Richard Harris, again, played like a really nice old wizard who passed on his wisdom. But Dumbledore's character gets more intense as the series progresses, and I think Michael Gambon was like a perfect casting to replace Richard Harris. So, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is an absolute masterpiece. I would have loved to see Alfonso Cuarón stick with the franchise, because if he directed all the other Harry Potter movies, if that was the case, I think one of them would have won an Oscar eventually, because he was just that good with this one. I don't know why he stepped away. I don't know why he only did one. I didn't really do the research. Let me know down in the comments if you know why. But anyways, let's go to our table here. And this one definitely takes up that number one slot. And I think he might hold it for a bit. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is number one on the list right now. Second, we have Chamber of Secrets. And third, right now, we have The Sorcerer's Stone. Prisoner of Azkaban is a fantastic film. Not only a great Harry Potter movie, but just a fantastic film in general. So, down in the comments, let me know what you think about Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Azkaban. Is this one your favorite? I know for a lot of people, this is their favorite one out of the whole franchise. Is this one your least favorite? Did you not enjoy the tonal switch between Columbus and Alfonso Cuarón? Let me know all of that down in the comments. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And I'll see you guys in the next review, which will be for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.